Hi guys, and I'm the Retro Critic here, and today we're going to review and talk about the Crash Gameboy games. Now, I've actually never played the Crash Gameboy games, but we're just going to talk about them. Now, even though I've never played these games, I will talk about them and give my thoughts to them on these games. So now today, guys, we're going to review and talk about the Crash Gameboy games. And now let's get started and let's find out and let's go and see for ourselves. So the Game Boy Crash games were a unique time of the Crash series, and it was an interesting time for the character Crash. So for the Crash Game Boy games, they are actually very fun and creative with a lot of original ideas and some cool concepts used in these games. These games look very fun and enjoyable and playable to me, and they look very fascinating with its gameplay. The gameplay looks very unique, and the gameplay is actually pretty good, from what I hear. And from what I see, the gameplay has a very cool style, and it looks very creative to play, and the games have an interesting story, and some of the stories are rehashes of other games, and some stories are not exactly like that, but they can be quite original. And the story of these games are very fascinating, actually, and they have their own memorable moments with some good ideas and with some awesome concepts with that too. And some of the story of these games are copy stories from other games, and some stories are not like that. And the story of these games are very creative with its storytelling, and its storytelling is very unique and creative, I gotta tell you. And the gameplay is very enjoyable and actually very good from what I hear. And from what I'm looking at, the gameplay is very simple and basic, and the gameplay is very fast-paced and challenging, but challenging in a good way. And overall, these games are quite your time, and they're special, and I mean like they're very special. And they're special, and I mean like they're very special. And this was a time where Crash games were just simple and fun. And in my opinion, this is where Crash became a more popular character and a PlayStation icon from this point. So, in the story of the Huge Adventure, Cortex and Uka Uka work together to beat Crash and open the time warps. And honestly, it's the same but similar story from Crash Warped, and Cortex and Uka Uka plan to fight Crash. And I don't know if the Huge Adventure is a spin-off of Crash Warped and that it takes place after it, but whatever the case is, it's quite a fun game, and it does the simple Crash platform formula. So then eventually in the game, Crash does fights Cortex and Uka Uka, and Cortex and Uka Uka are eventually defeated and destroyed. And the fight was good, and Crash saves the day again. So what I like about the Huge Adventure is that, yes, it does copies the story and concepts from other Crash games, but this game is a hell of a lot of fun, and it's generic at the same time. And this game has many interesting boss fights, and the boss battles are actually really good. In this overall. And overall, the Huge Adventure is a pretty good game that should get more recognition, and it's enjoyable. Overall, the Huge Adventure is a good game, and it's a enjoyable game, so go try it out yourself. So now there's Crash Entrance. So this game is a sequel to the Huge Adventure, and this game takes place after the Huge Adventure. So Crash Entrance's story is where Dr. N Trophy takes over, and like Crash Warped. And like in Crash Warped, he opens the time warps, and you have to go through time and warped through stuff, and go through time warped and stuff, and go around the world, and Dr. N Trophy takes over as the main villain of the game, and he also hires and recruits another doctor called Dr. Entrance. So Dr. Entrance is our new main villain. Also, he's not messing around, and he can be quite menacing too. And he hires and recruits him, and he is our main villain, and these guys are basically the main villains. So then Crash fights Dr. Entrance, and the fight was good, and he is quite a tough boss fight. And as a boss battle, he is kind of hard and challenging. At the same time, he is a fun boss fight, and as a boss battle, he's actually pretty enjoyable. And then Crash eventually defeats and destroys Dr. Entrance, and then Crash fights Dr. Entropy as the final boss fight. And the fight was good, and as a boss fight, he is quite good and hard, and he is very challenging in the game. But at the same time, he is fun to fight as a boss battle. And as a boss fight, he is very good to fight. And it's a pretty good boss battle overall. And overall, this final boss fight is tough and hard, but boy, is it deserving, and the payoff is very rewarding at the end. And this is a good one overall. And overall, that's my thoughts on that. And then Crash eventually defeats and destroys Dr. N Trophy. And then Crash saves the day again. And then Crash is a hero now of the game. So the boss battles in Crash Entrance are actually very good. And one of them is a mind-controlled crunch. And the mind-controlled crunch is a good one. Is good. And so the mind-controlled crunch was a was quite a boss fight. And in the mind controlled Crunch was a very tough and hard boss fight that was very deserving and rewarding at the end. And it was a fun boss fight. And this boss fight was very enjoyable overall. I mean, I really like this one. This one was kind of my favorite. I really liked it. This one was kind of my favorite. So also in this game, you fight Fake Crash, and this one is the most well-known one for Fake Crash. And this is not the first time this character has appeared, and he also appeared in Crash Warped, and that's right, his first game debut was a cameo in Crash Warped. In Crash Warped, he has a little cameo in there that you find, and I know it's difficult to find him, but you can look it up, how to spot him and find him. But it's easy to find him, but don't worry, I know it takes a while, but you eventually spot him, and that's how you find him. But now, after Crash Warped, he appeared in many other games, and he's in many other games, and he's in so many cameos, but in his most important role, his most biggest role yet was in this game, Crash Entrance. And Fake Crash has best role of this game yet. And he played a major character in this game, and he was quite something, and he was iconic, and his boss fights was amazing and really fun, and the boss battle with him was enjoyable and tough and challenging, but the payoff is rewarding at the end, and you get something in return. And his boss battle was the best I ever seen, and overall the boss fight with him was really good. So that was my thoughts on Crash Entrance. So now let's talk about Crash Purple Fusion and Spyro Orange The Cortex Conspiracy. These two games, Crash Purple Fusion and Spyro Orange The Cortex Conspiracy, was the greatest crossover I've ever seen, and it was a big deal at the time, and it was a fun idea for a crossover for these two iconic PlayStation characters to be put together in this big situation and working together and for the greater good and to kick ass, and this was a really fun idea at the time. Now, the story of these games are about Cortex and Ripto of the Crash and Spyro games have teamed up to fight Crash and Spyro and to rule the world, and they're like the main villains of these games, Crash and Spyro games, and it's about where Cortex and Ripto teamed up to fight Crash and Spyro and to rule the world. And the stories where Crash and Spyro have to work together to fight these guys and to save the world. And it's Crash and Spyro have to work together to fight these guys and to save the world. So then Crash and Spyro both had to fight Cortex and Ripto, and the fight was good, and they both eventually defeated and destroyed them. So I do like the concept of this game, Crash Purple Fusion, and the other game, Spyro Orange The Cortex Conspiracy, is really original and fresh. And the games this time changes its style, and the game has a different formula, and the platforming is different, and the game has a new concept in the game that is good, and the idea of Crash and Spyro in a crossover was a big deal at the time. And it was a fun idea, and it was one of those unique type of games, unique type of ideas type of games at the time. And at the time, these games were awesome, and they still are, and that's why I think they're so great, and that's why I think they were very unique at the time. And they're fantastic, and they're very spectacular. And those are my thoughts on that, and that was my thoughts on Crash Purple Fusion and Spyro Orange The Cortex Conspiracy. So guys, I'm Retro Critic, and I'm out. And I'll see you guys later, and I'll see you guys next time, and I'll see you guys in the next video, and I'll see you guys around. And so guys, have a good one, and peace out, and bye. And next time, we'll talk about the last two Crash installments, and these two last Crash installments, in my opinion, are not good, and these two games are terrible in my opinion, and these two games are going to be awful, and they're horrible, and they're just horrendous, and atrocious, and just downright bad. And we go down to the bottom of it, it's just a train wreck. So guys, that's what we'll talk about next time. And I just want to get this done. And honestly, I'm kind of done of this marathon. And I want to move on to do other things. And that's what I'm going to do soon. And let's go on to do more things. And let's go on to more bigger and better things to do. After all, let's do this. And let's get this over with. And have a good one. And peace out anyways. And see ya and bye.